Hello and welcome back to the Modern Horizons 3 limited set review. I'm looking at red cards right now. Um, that's what's going on here. If you like set reviews, if you like talking about red cards and limited, uh, and how good I think they're going to be, this is the place for you. If you have not been on at one of my set reviews before, I do have a slightly unique tier system that I use to grade cards. 5 tiers. Tier 1 is good, Tier 5 is bad. There's sort of a brief description of what the tiers kind of generally mean here on this slide that I have, but feel free to take a look at that before we get started. And we're just going to get started. We're just going to get right into the cards. With Ether Revolt, this is the set name that is now a card. 2 red for an enchantment. It has Revolt, fittingly. As long as a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, if a source you control will deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent that opponent controls, it deals that much damage +2 instead. Whenever you get 1 or more energy, this deals that much damage to any target. So initially, before I had gone through the whole set and processed everything, I was like, oh, this is a kind of bad enchantment. It doesn't do anything. This is a very difficult card to grade. First of all, I want to get on that on the record. So there are a couple of reasons why this is in tier 3 and not lower. One of the reasons is that there are tons of ways to gain energy in this set, like tons, especially in red. There's just tons and tons of ways to gain energy, and having an enchantment in play that just pays you off for gaining energy, even just gaining energy is kind of sick. It this is a lot of damage. Um, Especially if you have a way to trigger, if you have the way to trigger revolt. I can see like turns where on you untap with this on turn 5, you trigger revolt in some way, gain energy twice, and hit your opponent for 8 or something. It's not inconceivable that you could deal tons and tons of damage with this in the right deck. Now, I want to say that it is definitely deck specific, and I think the card very clearly is a build around card. But I don't think you're actually going to have to do all that much work when you're in red, because you are going to have all the good red cards use energy. All the good cards in this set are using energy pretty much. If you're making energy, you're in a good spot, and this card does pay you off for making energy. The the biggest concern about it is, of course, that it is a 4 mana enchantment that doesn't do anything. It also is double pipped, which I don't like either. And those are reasons why I'm kind of keeping it it's scored lower. But I do think this is really sweet, and I hope I do get to try to build around it, because I do think it's and it's one of those build arounds where your deck is functional if you don't draw the build around, which I kind of like. That's an aspect that I like about it, where if you don't draw this, your deck is still full of energy cards, and energy cards are good. So I mean, it's not a bad place to be on your build rounds. Amped Raptor, not a build around. 1 in a red for a 2/1 with first strike. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Then, if you cast it from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library. So you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by paying an amount of energy equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. So this essentially has 2 mana Cascade for 2, except it doesn't always hit. It only hits, whatever percentage of the time you have two 2 drops in your deck. Obviously, it hits a little bit more later in the game when you have more energy. This card is extremely high rolly, um, and I don't really have anything else to say about it other than that. It's obviously insane. In some games, you're gonna go turn 2 Amped Raptor, hit another 2 drop off this, and just win. If you just make 4 power and toughness on turn 2, you're so far ahead. This thing has first strike. I think this card without first strike would actually be kind of a reasonable card. With first strike, I think that kind of takes it over the edge, because it's just it just never going to go away, right? When you're 2/1, a 2/1 it gets outclassed on turn 5, but a 2/1 first strike never goes away. And this card I think is just really sick. I think this is one of the best red cards in the set, and just extremely sweet. And a 2 drop. Ashling Flame Dancer, 2 red for a 4/4. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end, and it has Magecraft. So the first time you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you discard a card, then draw a card. The second time in the same turn, it deals 2 damage to each opponent and creature they control. If it's the third time, you add 4 red mana. So originally I thought this one was it's like a 4/4, then it does stuff when you cast instants and sorceries. But then I sort of took it down the chain, and I was like, okay, well, what's the part of this card that I actually want? Well, I want to get to the deal two to my opponent and their creatures, right? That's the part of the card that I'm actually interested in. How do I get there? Well, I have to cast 2 instants and sorceries in red. Okay, what are most of red's instants and sorceries? Well, they're removal spells. Okay, so that's not great. Yes, they're damage-based removal, so maybe like they have a 5/5 and you can deal 3 to the 5/5 and then deal the 2 with this. So that's like a reason you could say that's like reasonable. But you still have to cast 2 in the same turn. This is just a 4 mana 4/4 on its face. It's double pipped again, which I don't like. And for all those reasons, I've kind of bumped it down to tier 3, and I don't think it's amazing right now. I think it's fine. Like, you could play it. I think it's like a good card, but like, in Modern Horizons 3, I think there's just better things out there than this. Like, you're just gonna be there's better ways to spend 4 mana in MH3, and this is not a card I'm super excited about. Cursed Mirror, 2 mana red for an artifact, and you can tap it to add red mana. And when it enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until end of turn, except it has haste. So this is a really weird like Manalith variant that also like has haste and attacks as a creature. I don't know. I think it's just bad still. Like these cards, we saw Bandits Hall be very good, but Bandits Hall was card advantage. Like Bandits Hall paid you off for doing something that was easy to do, and like generated card advantage for you on the back end. This does not really do either of those things. It does make mana and it's red mana, which is nice. It actually might be better if it made colorless mana. I don't know. And I'm not entirely sure about that. And like the becoming a creature thing is like kind of nice mid to late game upside, but it's like, are you really that interested in attacking with your thing? Like, I guess you can attack with your mana rock, and then like your opponent's like, well, I don't really want to block it because it's going to be a mana rock that doesn't do anything. So it's like, okay, I guess that that does do something. Maybe an ETB trigger. Uh, no, it's when it becomes a copy. It doesn't enter as a copy. It's a little bit of a different wording there. Yeah, I don't know. I just am not excited about Mana Rock. Detective Phoenix, 2 mana red for a 2/2 with Bestow for single red and collect evidence 6. Has flying and haste, and the enchanted creature has +2/+2 and has flying and haste. You can cast this from your graveyard using its Bestow ability. So yeah, this is just really sweet. Like the fact that you can bestow for 1 is kind of crazy. On turn 3, you're just going to play this to 2/2 flying haste. Not great, but I would put a 2/2 flying haste for 3 mana, probably on the somewhere between tier 2 and tier 3, probably closer to tier 2. But the fact that you can from your graveyard just like on turn 6 or 7, you play like a 5/4/4 or 5/5, something like that, and then you just collect evidence 6 and bestow this, and it gets haste and flying and +2/+2. It's just a threat that never goes away, and that just seems really good to me. So Phoenix is also just any Phoenix ability tends to be pretty good and limited, so I'm just going to trust in the Phoenix capabilities. Eldrazi Linebreaker. 1 colorless and a red for a 3/3 with the Void and Trample. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains haste and +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of Eldrazi you control. So, obviously, there's 1 Eldrazi in place, you're automatically getting +1/+0. There's going to be more, like you can make, it's very easy to make spawn tokens. I put this in tier 1. Yes, it's not easy to cast. I want to be very clear about that. Yes, it's not the easiest to cast. There is a cycle of lands that tap for colorless mana at uncommon that will enable you to cast spells like this. You're probably going to be playing those with this card. So, you know, it's it's not like it's going to be impossible to cast. Is basically what I'm saying. And like this thing is basically just the Reckless Stormseeker for Midnight Hunt. Like that was a 2/3 that could give itself haste, which this can as well. It has trample as well, and it also just like gives a creature every turn haste, which is really sweet. It's a must remove threat, and it's only 3 mana, and it has haste. So, pretty good card. Fanged Flames, 1 red for a sorcery. It deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile instead. We've seen this effect many times before. It actually gets better in stronger sets. You would think, oh, this type of effect is going to be worse because the cards around it are going to get better. It's not really the case with an effect like this. Exile removal gets better when there are more powerful creatures to remove, and just any removal in general gets better the more powerful the creatures are. So just kind of like, whatever, generally. So this card I think is going to be actually better than it usually is. The last time we saw this was Obliterating Bolt. Brothers War, that card was a tier 2 card. I have rated it as tier 2 again here. It's close to tier 1. This is a close to tier 1 card. It's a common. It's really, really strong removal. Flare of Duplication. 1 red for an instant. You may sacrifice a non-token red creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost, and you can copy target instant or sorcery spell and choose new targets for the copy. So, we've seen these copy effects before. They're very situational. They aren't very good. Sacrificing a non-token red creature is not something that's easy to do or something that you want to do to copy something. Yes, there are situations where it's going to be really good, but in most cases, I think you're just going to kind of be like, oh. It also only copies instant and sorcery spells. If you could copy any spell, you copy creature spells. All right, now we're cooking. Now we're doing a little bit of cooking. Now we're like, okay, maybe I'll trade my creature to make a big guy. But yeah, I think this is just too situational for limited. Also double picks. Try to cast it. Fledgling Dragon. 2 red for a 2/2 flying in 2024. That's threshold as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. This gets +3/+3 and has fire breathing. Yeah, obviously if you have a threshold, this card's sick, but threshold 7 is not an easy number of cards to get to in your graveyard in a game of limited, especially in this set where I feel like I haven't seen enough like self mill or discard or like any of that really to suggest to me that this card is going to be big on and especially on turn 4, right? You want your 4 mana plays to be good on turn 4. This is not good on turn 4. It dies to like everything on turn 4. It is a very big late game threat when it is on, and if you have the ability to enable it, I think it's like okay. I could even have put this in tier 5 and probably felt pretty happy about it. I think this is just your 4-drop needs to do more than this, right? Like it just is a body that sits there and blocks and whatever. So it doesn't even block. It just sits there and does nothing. It just sits, and then like hopefully you get to 7 cards in your graveyard, and then this does something. Frogmere Enforcer. 7 colorless mana for a 4/4 with affinity for artifacts. It also has prototype as a 2/2 for 3 and a red. So I don't like this. I mean, obviously it's sort of a hybrid between Frogmite and Mirror Enforcer. Cool, like background for the card exists. I like the design. The design's sweet. Whatever. I kind of, what I wish they did. I know that this is kind of like weird and nitpicky and whatever. I really wish they had made it 3 and a colorless for the prototype. I don't think there's a reason why they couldn't do that, but I kind of would like that. I don't know. Anyway, they made it red instead, so it's in the red section. I just don't think Mirror Enforcer is that good. Like Frogmite is definitely bad, and I don't think Mirror Enforcer is that good either in a MH3 context, like in limited. Yes, there is like red does care about artifacts. There's going to be plenty of artifacts in red. This is going to cost 4 or 5 mana pretty consistently. Um, I just don't think that's something you care about because like a 4 mana 4/4 no text is not good. Yes, on like turn 5 or 6, you can be like, oh, I'm going to make a thing and then make a 3 mana 4/4. It's like that's pretty good, but I just think there's better things to be doing. I don't think it's I don't think Affinity is free enough for this to be good. Because again, it's all stats. There's no ETB. It doesn't really synergize with anything other than just being an artifact, and it's a big artifact for the most part. So like sacrificing it isn't that great. Again, in red, you can kind of like do the thing. I think this card's probably going to be overvalued because it's a Mirror Enforcer. I don't know. I'm not excited about this. Furnace Hellkite. 5 red for a 5/5 with affinity for artifacts. It has flying and fire breathing. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a better affinity for artifacts card. Just genuinely, like you can see why I would think it's better, right? It is the same mana value as Mirror Enforcer. Obviously, it's red instead of colorless, but whatever. Like we're in red. Like red is the artifact color. Red and black are the artifact colors. So you're gonna have red. It's double pip, but it's not as bad. And I think if you can, this is reliably going to be a 5/5 on turn 5. And there are going to be some cases where you can get this to be a 5/5 on turn 4. Like it's not completely aspirational to think I could go artifact on 1, artifact on 2, artifact on 3. Like that is a thing that can happen in this format. There are ways to do that. I don't think it's completely unreasonable to think that could happen. And again, So you can get like getting this down on turn 4 is considerably better than getting a Mirror Enforcer down on turn 4. Because it's an actual threat. Now it's an artifact, so it's sort of a double-edged sword in the sense that like, yep, it's an artifact that dies to artifact removal, and there is considerable artifact hate in the set. So I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I think if you're gonna play a big threatening dragon thing, this is like a fine thing to play. That's why it's in tier 3. Card that is not in tier 3. Galvanic Discharge, single red mana for an instant. Choose target creature or planeswalker, you get 3 energy. You may pay any amount of energy. It deals damage equal to that. It deals that much damage to that permanent. So my favorite card of all time is Lightning Bolt. I don't know, not trivia that most people, anyone would know about me, but I am partial to Lightning Bolts and Lightning Bolt adjacent cards. Now, part of the reason is they go face. I like the bolt to go everywhere, but Galvanic Discharge is completely messed up for several reasons. One of the reasons it's messed up is like every mode of this card is good. I guess is kind of like the way that I want to frame this. So if your opponent has like a 2/2 and you want to kill their 2/2 with a lightning bolt, you're like, well, I guess I'll kill their 2/2 with my lightning bolt and whatever. I'm wasting the extra damage. There's no wasting damage on this. You can deal 1, you can deal 2, you can deal 3, you get the extra energy to do stuff. You can even deal more. If you have 2 energy lying around and your opponent has a 5/5, you can go, all right, I'll cast this, kill your 5/5 for 1 mana and use my energy. Like, that's completely messed up. That's a completely messed up thing to be able to do. This is basically Swords to Plowshares. I don't know. Like, it's not, but like, it's really close. This card is a complete beating. I really think it would have been good if they even only gave you 2 energy. Like, if this was like, oh, you gain 2 energy and then you can have the same ability, I think this card would have been like probably still tier 1, which makes an argument for me having a higher number of tiers. No, I will never have a higher number of tiers. Probably, I don't know. I haven't decided. Probably not though. And yeah, I mean, the flexibility on this is just insane. Like it really and truly synergizes with everything that Red wants to do, and is excellent, very efficient removal, and continues to be relevant as the game progresses. So I don't know what more you could want from a card, really. Ghostfire Slice. 2 and a red for an instant with Devoid. It costs 2 less to cast if an opponent controls a multicolored permanent, and it deals 4 damage to any target. So, I mean, this is, 3 mana deal 4 is good. It's a good card. You're not going to complain about this card. There's just not that many multicolored permanents lying around. There's a bunch of Devoid. So, like, there are some multicolored permanents that are actually colorless. So, you don't get that. You don't get it there. And again, there's just not as many multicolored cards in the set as there usually are. So, yeah, I mean, this is mostly a 3 mana deal 4, which is good. We saw a 3 mana deal 4 at Explosive Derailment that had upside that was good. And this is going to be good, but not amazing. Glimpse the Impossible. 2 and a red for a sorcery. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remain exiled, put them into your graveyard. Then create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn token for each card put into your graveyard this way. So this card is very difficult to understand what it's doing. So by itself, this is a 3 mana, make 3 colorless Eldrazi's and, mill 3. I mean, that's not bad. Like, that's not a bad, like, is that bad? I don't think it's like horrendous on turn 3. Like, you're basically making 3 like Lotus Petals. Like, 3 mana, you make 3 Lotus Petals, and then in the late game you can be like, all right, well, I need to, like, I think here's the thing about this card. I do think on turn 3 you're probably supposed to play it more often than not if you have nothing else to do. But I also think that on like turn 7 you can be like, all right, I'll fire this off. Maybe I hit some stuff I want to play, maybe I don't. It draws me a bunch of cards if I like want to find it. This is a really fascinating card. I hope it's good. The one of the concerns I have is, does it really fit in with what Red's doing? And the answer is kind of no. Like, Red isn't really trying to like make a bunch of Eldrazi and then also like go big. I think what Red is going to be best at doing is artifacts and energy. So I think this card not doing something with either of those hurts it considerably. I think that, without that, like, this is kind of a red-green-ish kind of card, or, or red-white maybe. There's some tokeny stuff. But, yeah, I think the card is powerful and does some cool things, and, like, has the ability, like, it, you know, has the ability to do something cool. It does, if you're doing threshold stuff, this does get a bunch of cards into your graveyard. Like, that's a thing. Like, again, that's the thing that it does. It does a bunch of, like, things, and I'm kind of curious about the things that it does. I'm not excited about this card. I don't think you have to take it, like, especially highly, but I'm interested. I'm interested in it. Infernal Captor. 3 in red for a 3/3 with exploit. When it exploits a creature, gain control of target artifact or creature until end of turn. Untap that permanent, gains haste until end of turn. No, this is too. I put this too low. Well, did I? Okay. There are some free sack outlets. There's not a ton. There's one at rare in black. There's just not a ton of sack outlets. You do need to be exploiting this, like with this. And the problem is you're having to give up board presence to steal their creature temporarily. This isn't like Grishnak. I know that it kind of looks a little bit like Grishnak, where it's like, oh, it's a creature that steals their thing. It's like, okay, yeah. I have put this too low. I think I will move it up to tier 3. Hold on, give me a moment. So yeah, I've corrected it. It is kind of inherently bad to be sacrificing something to steal something temporarily, but getting this type of effect on a creature usually is pretty good. So I am actually going to start a little bit higher on it than tier 4. Tier 4 is like, you could, like, there like, tier 4 is stuff that you shouldn't really be playing. Like, you're not super happy to play, but like is okay. Like, you'll play it. Tier 5 is like, man, I don't see that card like ever. I don't think this is like that bad. Man. The inherent problems with having to sacrifice something to steal something is not great. But I do think there is the fact that it's a common. There are some sacrifice outlets. I don't think it's completely impossible to do some stealing and sacrificing things. It does take artifacts, which I don't think is like super relevant, but I don't know, maybe. And I don't know. I'm interested. I'm interested in this card. I'm interested, but I'm not excited. Inventor's Axe. I am excited about. Single red mana for a flash equipment. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. When Inventor's Axe enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equip creature gets +2/+0, and you get equipped by paying 2 energy. I I really like this design. Do I think the card is amazing? No. Do I really like the design? Yes, I do. This is a good version of the Flash equipment that they have done, where like it's only 1 mana. You can also just cast it, but you would never. I mean, I guess you could do that. Just get 2 energy on turn. That is actually interesting. There was my voice. Do you just play this on turn 1 to get 2 energy? I think there are going to be spots where if you've got an Ampharaptor coming on turn 2, yeah, you're gonna want to do that. Like, you want your Ampharaptor to hit on turn 2. Like, that is a thing that, like, you can just play it. You can't just play this for 2 energy. And that's kind of a thing that, like, it's kind of interesting. The equip having to pay energy, I don't love, but when it's nice to be able to do if you want it, and it gives you the 2 energy to do it once by itself. It is also an artifact that, like, again, if it's just sitting on the battlefield, you'll probably have some other way to use it or have affinity and stuff. I really like where this fits into the color and what it's doing. I don't think it's amazing. It's an equipment. It's low priority, but it's a solid card, and I really am excited to play with it. Laelia the Blade Reforged. 2 in a red for a 2/2 with haste. When it attacks, you exile the top card of your library and you play that card this turn. And whenever one or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard, put +1/+1 counter on Laelia. So it's a 3/3 haste. If you've played Vintage Cube, you know this card's like good. It's good in Vintage Cube. It's going to be very good here. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot to talk about with this. Like, the people know. The people know that this card's really strong. It basically draws you a card every turn when it attacks. It attacks as a 4/4 on turn 4. Attacks as a 3/3 on turn 3. There are going to be spots where it can't attack, yes, but I mean, it's rare. And even if you're, I do think it is going to be slightly relatively worse than it is in Vintage Cube because in Limited people just have 3/3s in play, whereas in Vintage Cube, like no one has ever cast a creature in Vintage Cube as far as I'm aware. So it is kind of tough there. But if you just treat it as like the worst case scenario as a 3-mana 3/3 haste, like you're and sometimes it just runs away with the game, right? Like this just completely runs away with the game in some spots, and that's why it's really good. Meltdown. X and a red. Destroy each artifact with mana value X or less. It's a sorcery. There are going to be some matchups against red black where you take this and it's like really good. So yeah. It's just not really not a whole lot to talk about. Like some spots it's gonna be incredible, and most spots it's gonna be unusable. Meteoric Mace. 4 red for an equipment. Creature gets +4/+0 and has trample. You can equip for 4 and it has cascade. So I've rated this tier 5. Is it actually tier 5? I think the answer is yes. I just think there's better stuff you could do. Paying 10 total mana to equip something is just not good. The cascade, yeah, it's nice, but once you get to cascade like 6, like, once you're hitting 5-drops, it's like how many 5-drops are you realistically playing in your red deck? Probably not a ton. Like you're what? Your average cascade hit on this is like a 3/3. I don't know. Is that good? Not really. That's not great. Like, maybe it's actually a 3/4 or a 4/4 in this set. But the point stands. Like you're just cascading into nothing, and then this mace is just it just sits there. Like yes, if you ever get to equip it and attack, well, unbelievable! You did it. You actually spent 10 mana to do this thing. It's just like I don't get this card. I don't understand why it's here. I don't understand why it's so expensive. It's clearly a commander reprint. You can see that from the little symbol on there. I don't know. Not for me. Mog Mob. Red for a 3/3. When you sacrifice it, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. You don't want to play this in your average red deck, but if you're close to mono red, it's fine. So it goes into tier 4 instead of tier 5. And that's kind of the story with this. It's good. Obviously, it's good in a deck that can cast it on turn 3 reliably, but not special. Boltyn Gatekeeper. 2 and a red for a 2/3. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and is unearthed for a single red mana. So I really like this, actually. I don't like... So there are a lot of things I don't like about it. The first thing I don't like about it is that a 3 mana 2/3. Very bad. Don't like that. Doesn't really have an ETB. But there are a couple of things it does have. It has Unearth. Unearth is inherently a powerful effect. Especially when it comes to like having non-token artifacts. This is a non-token artifact that also comes back and generates another non-token artifact entering the battlefield for 1 mana. There's no cap on how much damage it can do in a turn. So you can play this, and then if you make a thing that makes 2 creatures, that's 2 damage. That's a lot of damage. So I like that about it. And yeah, we've kind of gone over the things I like and things I don't like about Molten Gatekeeper. You don't want it in decks that don't care about artifacts, I don't think. Like, this is like red-black only. Like, blue-red's never going to play this card. You're never going to play this card in blue-red. It's terrible in blue-red. You would never play it there. Red-white, I could see it. Green-red, I could see it. I just don't think... Just don't play this in the wrong decks. But, I think in red-black, this is a serviceable card that is, it is a real, like, it's not a win condition, but it does, some threatening things going on with the pinging your opponent. Party Thrasher. 1 red for a 1/4. Non-creature spells you cast from exile have Convoke. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard a card. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. So I actually originally had this higher and have bumped it down. The reason is like kind of simple. Rummaging in this way on turn 2 is not something you really want to be doing very often. Yes, you get some selection, but being forced to play the cards this turn is not good. And yes, in the late game, it's on turn 5, turn 6, whatever, great. But this is a 2-mana 1/4, right? Like we're talking about a 2-mana 1/4. Like, 4 toughness is not unfathomable to deal with in limited in MH3. I don't think this card's bad or unplayable. I just don't think it's like a premium 2-drop, because it just it isn't. I'm not excited. I'm not looking at this card and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get in there, gotta get it in the deck. Doesn't attack well, doesn't really block all that well. It blocks okay. And like, is it generating value, or is it like kind of tricking you into thinking it generates value? That's kind of what I'm concerned about with this card. Phyrexian Ironworks, 2 and a red for an artifact. Whenever you attack, you get an energy, and you can pay 3 energy to create a 3/3 artifact golem token and tap it. I love this. I love this card. Oh man. Oh, Phyrexian Ironworks. Is this card actually this good? So let's kind of like walk it through, right? So if all of the good cards in your deck are getting energy, and you have a critical mass of energy cards in your deck, which I think you will, right? I think in blue red, even red white, or whatever, blue red, red white, for sure, you will have enough ways to get energy. This, like, if you if you have a 2-drop that can attack, you get an energy, like, just things that repeatedly make energy are inherently interesting. They're inherently interesting to me. This does enable itself in the sense that when you make a 3/3 golem with the energy, you can use the golem to attack. And a 3/3, again, 3/3 is kind of the power and toughness that I personally feel is relevant throughout the entire course of the game. Once you get to 3/3, it's really hard for a 3/3 not to be able to attack in some meaningful capacity. It does happen. It's rare though. Usually, when you have a 3/3, a 3/3 is something that can attack and block, especially if you have ways to like buff it or whatever. And just the inherent like when you attacking energy thing. I do think this card is probably worse than I'm grading it, and I understand that. Like I understand that's true. I understand this card is probably worse than I'm giving it credit for. I get it. I know, but this is a really sweet card. It does a lot of cool things, and I hope it's this good. I really do hope it's this good. Because making 2 3/3s is pretty good. You can, I mean, again, there's going to be some decks where you're making a 3/3 like every turn. Like it's just going to be like every turn you're going to make a 3/3. Pinnacle Monk. 3 red for a 2/2 with prowess. When it enters the battlefield, you return target instant sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and it also is an MDFC, so you get a pain land on the back. Yeah, this is actually one of the better MDFCs. I actually think this is one of the best ones. It's still not quite in the tier 1 category, but it's really strong. The fact that you can get something back from your graveyard for 5 mana is really nice. And the land is good. Again, this is mostly a land, but in the late game, you actually do want the spell. And again, that's kind of how I rate the MDFCs. The MDFCs are, if every time in the early game, I'm happy to play it as, like, again, you can always play it as a land in the early game, but if I'm not playing it for a land, I'm always happy when I'm doing that. That's kind of like when I start to grade these in tier 2 instead of tier 3. And that I think does. That is the case, I think, with this card. Power Balance, red for an enchantment. When an opponent casts a spell, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you do, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost if the 2 spells have the same mana value, which will never happen, so I wouldn't worry about it. Also, it's hard to cast. The art is, it's counterbalance, I understand, whatever. I don't know, they could have made it better. They could have made it a better card. Tribute to counterbalance, whatever. Growl in the Implicit Maze. 3 red for a Saga. It deals 2 damage to each creature and planeswalker your opponent's control. You may discard a card. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them until the end of your next turn. And you can create a Spellgorger Word Weird token, which is just like a 2/2 with, whatever. Spellgorger Weird text. So this saga has problems. I will acknowledge the problems. 2 damage on turn 5, not the best. The card advantage it gets you, pretty good. Like on turn 5, this is where you kind of want the like discard exile you may play at this part this turn. And this is the end of your next turn. So it's not this one. This one gives you a lot of time to play those cards, which is really nice. So, and then at the end of the day, you're getting a Spellgorger Weird, which is a fine token thing. I don't think this card's amazing or any means, like whatever. Like I think it's fine. I don't think it's the best. 2 damage, like the real question is how much is 2 damage, and it's more than you think, right? It's more than you think, but it still isn't. Like, there's going to be spots where this is just like, wow, this really does not answer my opponent's 4/4. You know, there really is spots where that's going to be happening. So I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I think it's fine. Ral Monsoon Mage. 1 and a red for a 1/3. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, this deals 1 damage to you. If you win the flip, you may exile it. If you do, return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. It transforms into a planeswalker. It enters it with an additional loyalty for each instant or sorcery spell you've cast this turn, so at least 1. And it has a +1 until your next turn. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Just keeps its old ability. It deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets as a -2. You draw a card if you control blue permanent other than Mal. Pretty good. And then -8, which is never going to happen, but you can exile some stuff and do some things and whatever. I guess you pay some instants and sorceries without paying their mana costs. Okay, cool. That's just not going to happen. I think this is fine. We saw Baral in what was it, one of the bonus sheets at some point. Baral was sort of whatever. This is, I think, slightly better than Baral, but I'm not. Like, sometimes you're just gonna lose a flip. Like, this is. If you ever lose a flip with this, you're probably losing the game. I know. Like, I don't want to sound that like defeatist, but like, oh man, I lost 1 life and I'm gonna lose the game. But like, I mean, like you're getting close to losing. Once you lose 1 flip, take a damage. You add -1 life on your instants and sorcery spells to cost less, and then like if this didn't flip, so then it's easy to kill it. Even if it flips, it's not like that amazing. Obviously, if you have blue permanents to draw cards and stuff, it's good. I don't know. I'm not excited about this one. I think this is one of the worst ones in the cycle. Reckless Pyro Surfer. 1 red for a 2/2 with haste when it has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets battle cry until end of turn. That's a lot of damage, right? So 2/2 haste on 2 is, close to a tier 2 card by itself, and then every turn it's going to be pumping your entire team for +1/+0. I believe that battle cry does stack, so if you have a fetch land, you can trigger this twice, and it will trigger twice on battle cry. So niche application that will come up in this set. There are several fetch lands in this set actually, so be advised. But yeah, just a really solid 2-drop. No complaints for me. Reiterating Bolt. 1 red for a sorcery. Replicate. Pay 3 mana. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So you can pay 3 energy. Not pay 3 mana. Pay 3 energy. You can pay 3 energy to keep doing this as many times as you want if you got a bunch of energy lying around. Not the best use of energy, but fine. This is so much worse than the 1 mana spell that it's actually sickening, but it's fine. Like like this is so much worse than the common that it's actually kind of a joke, but it's still a decent card, I think. Just because you can be like, all right, well, I'll kill 2. It's a 2-for-1. I 2-for-1 you. I use my energy and I 2-for-1 you. That's a thing that can happen. Sarpadian Simulacrum. 1 red mana for a 1/1 with haste, and you can pay 4 mana to sacrifice it and deal 4 damage to a creature. Not exciting, but I think in artifact decks you are going to want it. It is kind of like when this is on the board, what is your opponent supposed to do? It's like, well, I can't really play my 4/4 that dies to this because they're just going to sacrifice it. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like annoying at least, and like kind of does stuff. I should probably move this down to tier 4. This is probably a tier 4 card, and I'm just overrating it because it's a 1-drop and like it's an artifact. I'm like, ooh, 1-drop artifact, affinity. It's all over the place. It's oh my god, it's everything. but you know, I don't know. I'm inclined maybe to move this down even. Dealing 4 damage to a creature is fine for 4 mana, but I'm just not all that excited about. You know what? It's getting moved down. I'm moving it down. Get out of here. All right, it's been moved down. I apologize to the Serpadian Simulacrum, but it had to be done. All right, next, Siege Smash, a card I had just moved up. 2 in a red, 1 in a red for an instant with Split Second. It has choose 1 to start target artifact or target creature get +2/+2 and gains trample until return. So, Split Second on your combat trick is really good, right? Like, that's just a really good ability to have. Because once it goes on the stack, your opponent can't respond by killing it with damage-based removal. Like, so obviously you can still get blown out, right? Like if they have, this resolves, then they remove the creature. But in some cases, they're not going to be able to do that because it's now out of range of the removal. So that's nice. And there's tons of artifacts, and there's tons of impactful artifacts everywhere in the set. And the fact that the combat trick gives trample. Yeah, I mean, this looks really sweet to me. Yes, the destroy target artifact. Like you do have to be in for the combat trick, right? Like you have to be red, you have to be aggressive, you have to be attacking and whatnot. But if you're in for the combat trick, I think this card is sick, like actually sick. +3/+2 in trample is it's no joke, right? +3/+3 in trample we've seen for other stuff, and it's been really good. And this destroying the ability to destroy an artifact in this set, I think, is extremely relevant. I think you're going to want this card a lot. Skittering a precursor. Obviously, you're not going to draft. Like the thing about this is it's a combat trick, so you don't have to draft it super high. But again, the tiers are sort of more of a vibe-based situation. Skittering precursor. 2 in a red for 8/3/3 with Void and Men. Otherwise, when you sacrifice a non-token permanent, you create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature token. Yeah, I mean this is good. Like this, yes, you need to sacrifice non-token permanents. There are ways to do that. Not a ton, but whatever. I mean, it's a 3-mana 3/3 menace. Like, are we really complaining about a 3-mana 3/3 menace? I think the answer is no. So it's also an Eldrazi. I just think this is a good 3-drop. Skoa Embermage, 4 red for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to any target. And disc Grandeur. So you can discard another card named Skoa Embermage and sacrifice 2 mountains. And this deals 4 damage to any target. I don't know. This is weird. Don't do the second mode. I mean, the first mode is questionable as is. Like 6 mana 4/4 deal 4 to something. I mean, that's not like Flametongue Kavu is a lot better than that. And Flametongue Kavu is like Flametongue Kavu is pretty close to a tier 1 card still. That card's house. I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't reprint Flametongue Kavu in this set. I don't know why they didn't do that. I feel like this card should have just been Flametongue Kavu. Why is it not I don't get it. Flametongue Kavu is busted. I don't know why we had to do way worse Flametongue Kavu. I just think there's so many better ways to remove things, and this doesn't fit in any deck, so I'm just not excited about it. But I think you can play it. It's not a complete disaster. Smelted Chargebug, 1 in a red for 8. 1/3 menace. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, and when it attacks, you may pay an energy. If you do, another target attack creature gets +1/+7 until end of turn. I think this is mostly getting credit for having for making energy as a 2-drop and not really anything else. I don't think it's great or anything. Like I think this is kind of medium to bad, but it is 2 mana. It makes energy. It does have applications for the energy, so not a ton to complain about, but nothing special either. Spawn Gang Commander. 3 red for a 2/2 with Devoid. You may cast when you cast this spell, create 3 Eldrazi spawn tokens, and you can pay 1 and a colorless mana to sacrifice an Eldrazi, which includes itself, and this deals 2 damage to any target. So, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of Eldrazi lying around. This is a powerful effect. You're making, 4 pieces of material for 5 mana. It's double pipped, which isn't great, but you do this, and you're probably pretty stable, and your opponent's like, well, I can't. I mean, you can attack, but I mean, this card does have some problems, but I think just making this much stuff, you have to give credit to the amount of stuff that's being made. Colorless mana, it does fuel itself in some ways where you can be like, all right, well, I'll sack 2 guys to be able to deal 2, and they can make colorless mana. It's not the best deal in the history of deals, but it's not terrible. Sundering Eruption, the other red MDFC, 2 and a red for a sorcery, destroy target land its controller may search the library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap it, and shuffle. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. And also it's the, pay 3 life MDFC. So it's fine. Again, doesn't even make all the stuff not block. Like flyers can still block, which is not super relevant downside, but it is downside nonetheless. This is a land, again, like MDFCs that are basically only lands, I do ding a little bit, and you can see that I put it down into tier 3, just because like when it's a land 90+% of the time, you're basically putting a land in your deck. Like the value is just lower, you know, than when it has 2 modes that you actually like. This mode is good when it's good, but is when it's good going to be when you draw this as a land and like off the top of your deck? Probably not in a lot of spots. Like you're going to be pretty unhappy about it. So yeah. Thriving Skyclaw. 2 red for a 3/2 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. When it attacks, you may play 3 energy if you do put a +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, this is pretty bad. It does gain 3 energy on ETB, but it is just a 4 mana 3/2 flyer and is double pipped. So there's just better way like this. I don't think I'm ever going to play this card in this format. Frankly, I should probably put it into tier 5. I'm just never going to play this. It's so below replacement level that you don't need it, and even in decks that are like really hungry for energy, I don't think you're going to want to play this. Unstable Amulet. 1 and a red for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. When you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Unstable Amulet deals 1 damage to each opponent. And you can pay 2 and tap it and pay 2 energy to exile the top card of your library. You may play it until you exile another card with Unstable Amulet. So this is sweet. Again, like I'm actively looking for things that are like, oh, this is an energy payoff. It enables itself. It replaces itself. Lots of great stuff. You can, if you don't want to play the card, you are allowed to exile another card. Just say goodbye to the thing you exiled. You probably don't really want to do that, but you certainly can. The real interesting part of this card is, what do you do with it? So you play this. Let's say you play this on turn 2. Are you supposed to tap it immediately? Probably no, because you can't really cast the spell. What about turn 3? Do you tap the amulet immediately? Probably yes, right? But that's energy. You could be using that energy to do something else. It's like, well, but if the amulet's in your deck, you probably want to be using the energy to use the amulet, and you want to get the card down early so you know what it is. You know if you can cast it or whatever. So it's like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with this card that I kind of like. So I don't know. I'm very fascinated by it. I think it's good. Void Pouncer. 1 and a red for a 3/1 with the Void and Kicker for 2 and a colorless. If it is kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters and trample counter with haste. Kind of weird they don't do haste counters. I don't know. I mean, you don't need to do haste counters. Whatever. 1 and a red for so like this is just a 2-drop that is also relevant in the late game. It's basically a red-green only card. I don't think you're going to play this outside of red-green. Super exciting. I don't know. Not exciting at all. No excitement for me. And the final red card, which is Wheel of Potential. 2 and a red for a sorcerer. You get 3 energy. Then you may pay X energy. Each player may exile their hand and draw X cards. If X are 7 or more, you may play cards you own exile this way until the end of your next turn. Yeah. So Wheel of Fortune isn't even good in like I don't know. This is one of those cards like that I get soapboxy about because I'm like, who is this for? Like I don't even the Commander players don't even want this. I don't understand why they printed it. It's terrible. It's like like guys, it is Modern Horizons 3, and we can't design a card that is like interacting with our opponent's hands. We can't say, oh, they're forced to discard. I get why this is like, yes, I understand why this isn't, the way designed that way, because it's just be Mind Twist if you designed it like that. But can't we print Mind? Like, is Mind Twist really too strong? Each player discards their hand for 3 mana. I don't know. Kind of interesting. Probably be too good, but kind of interesting. Would still be bad and limited. Yeah, just don't play this in limited. It's just not. It's just there's just no. You're paying the mana. They get all the benefit of getting to choose and all that stuff. So that's it. That's the end of the red limited set review. Stick around. There's going to be more set reviews for other colors, and the rest of the set is coming soon. The set's coming soon. Get excited. Be excited. Like and subscribe. Everybody do all that stuff. Anyways, I'll see you.